Is visiting policy fellow at the Oxford Internet Institute, chief executive of AI for the People, a public interest responsible AI team. Thank you very much indeed for coming on the programme again. Let's first of all reference Sora, because that is, I think, the big change that people are looking at now and saying this is clearly the future. What is it? What does it do? And how good is it?
Sora works a lot like the Google search engine that we're all used to, in the sense that you put in an input and then you get your output. For Google, you might ask, should kids be homeschooled, just to go back to the segment that you just had, and then it will pop up. With Sora, what you're going to be able to do is actually to speak in. I want to have a video of Tom on LBC, and then it's pop up some rendering, but you would have just spoken it in. You can also put in text, you could also put in pictures, and it's exciting because we've never had this before in the creative industries. Before, you would need a production team, You would need microphones, you would need sound. You basically need people who have jobs doing those things.
It is, and the quality so far, and this is really in its infancy, but the quality of it from the videos I've seen is spectacular. You would think it was filmed in a natural environment. I think there's a video of a young monkey or whatever. You would think it was real life.
Right. You think you are right there. And I'm someone who's excited about technology, but I think, and probably what we're going to speak about, is if we can do this by just typing this in, what happens to creative people?
Absolutely.
I started my career as a producer. I've been a presenter. What would happen to people like me?
And I guess then, if you are, whether you're in advertising or marketing or presenting or music writing or whatever it is, if a video is able to be created that also is asked to have Taylor Swift's songs in a kind of mashup in the background, if you're Taylor Swift, you're going to be very worried about that, and you don't want them to have access to it. But the government looks likely to be able to offer access to it.
I am not the government. However, However, I do know a little bit about this. As you know, Tom, I am an AI, I'm an AI geek from Oxford. But this is actually incredibly, I think, dangerous. And the reason that I think dangerous is that if you have lived as long as I have, then you will always remember the 1990s and Napster.
Yeah.
And what Napster was the first time that we could get music for free.
Hours spent downloading Napster music. Hours in front of the computer.
Tower Records, who cares?
Yeah.
45 and 72, what are you talking about? And we now don't have Tower Records in Leicester Square, right? That business has collapsed because we don't need to go and buy physical music. Napster was the predecessor to streaming. Mm-hmm. And that just meant that now artists are not making the same type of money, because in those cases, their IP contracts have been renegotiated. Now imagine if you can get around IP and you can just take that music. What you're doing is putting hundreds and thousands of creative people out of work, because the currency by which the creative industries run is intellectual property.
But if you find a way of, so the government could say, all of this is licensed, you have to remunerate those who created it in order to use it on your video. If you just input a bit of text saying, slightly tweak the music to make it a couple of keys higher or lower or whatever, you've got the same kind of thing. It's not quite that, but you presumably might not have to pay any licensing costs.
And we see that all the time, particularly on British TV. I always remember years ago a skit by French and Saunders where instead of using the Madonna song Vogue, they rendered another one called Bogue, and then they created like a fake idea of what voguing was.
But I'm so here for your 90s references. It's great. Loving it.
I'm just old and with it today. Just don't ask me about Diddy. I do not know anything about that.
I'm not going to go there.
I was around in the 90s, but what you're saying is correct. There are ways of changing keys, changing words, but having the same idea. What I think is very dangerous is that original composition is part of what moves culture forward. Mm-hmm. think about some of the greats we've just lost, I'm thinking of Quincy Jones as being an example. Quincy Jones made $500 million in his lifetime because he was able to license the music because he owned the intellectual property.
It's very interesting. Yeah, and this debate is going to run and run.
The performance.
Yeah. And there's a government consultation that will run for 10 weeks, but only 10 weeks until the end of February. We'll take a look when it concludes. Mutale, thanks so much. Mutale Nkonde, Visiting Policy Fellow at the Oxford Internet Institute, Chief Executive of AI for the People, a public interest, responsible AI team, and a baby of the 90s.